Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
So the first thing I can say on this week's episode of the Paracast is that my voice does not seem to be as challenged as last week. Now, Curt Collins, who's our guest co-host this week, did not hear last week's episode featuring Chris Garitano, the producer, director, writer of the Montauk Chronicles, at least not yet. So he didn't hear my voice. I thought I sounded 20 years older as a result of the fact that my sinuses were clogged and that kind of thing. And I've got to thinking here that if ET was among us, why can't they do something about sinuses and teeth? What's your take on that, Curt Collins?
Well, that's a good point. You know, we in the news, we see that Edgar Mitchell is saying that the aliens have saved us from a nuclear apocalypse. And I'm wondering about, what about some of our other problems? Our ingrown toenails, the sinuses are high on the list, migraines. Let's do something for health.
Right. It is so peculiar. The aliens want to take care of global warming, the environment, or say we should take care of it. They don't really do anything. We should control nuclear weapons, but they don't do anything. They say we should. So, we have this agreement with Iran, which is very controversial. But ET's doing nothing about it. They just make these pronouncements. But what about conventional day-to-day things like cancer? So as we prepare to do this show, I was listening in the morning with this press conference featuring former President Jimmy Carter, who is suffering from melanoma, a very severe form of cancer. And he's describing his treatment process. Now, the guy is over 90 years old. He's lived a long and fruitful life. Whether you agree with his politics or not, he's certainly lived plenty. He's had a good life. So if this is what it is, we understand it. But the point being here is, what is ET doing about all that stuff? They haven't told us how to control cancer. They haven't told us how to fix teeth, how to fix sinuses when they get clogged. They say we should stop our nuclear weapons, but they have no ideas about doing it. What about global warming? Sounds to me, Curt Collins, that ET is useless.
Well, it's, there are some good kindergarten lessons in there. So, if you just love thy neighbor and that sort of thing, that does. But I'm not sure that we really need, these cosmic overlords to tell us that. I think, most of us have that figured out, and doing it is another matter.
By the way, where's Christopher O'Brien this week? Well, Chris had an emergency to attend to. He may join us later on in the episode. So that's why Curt Collins is here. All right. Now, Curt, I know that, as you told me before we started, you didn't hear the episode about the Montauk Project. Is that anything you've ever read about in terms of UFO investigation?
I've really not heard it in connection with UFOs, but it's just sort of the location and the mystery of it, and it's it's really spread. I guess it's probably rivals the Dulce legend in how widely it's known.
Even above the Philadelphia experiment.
I don't know. They're probably neck and neck, I would think.
Well, the thing about it also is that the core of it is not incredible. That the U.S. military engaged in mind control experiments. All right? That's already something that sounds credible. Whether it happened there or not, we don't know. We have the testimony of questionable witnesses. But that is credible. Any kind of government involvement in doing some weird stuff, we can believe that. We don't believe our government. I mean, let's go back to the case that you have spent so many years investigating, Cash Landrum. So, was that object a test aircraft? You see my point?
Right. There are a lot of theories, and there have been so many strange things. Not that anybody wants to believe it can happen, but there has been human experimentation. So I hate to think that we're using our own citizens as test subjects, but it has happened.
Well, obviously, it's a matter of not showing respect for any individual. But look, do we show respect to our soldiers if we pull them into a war for which there's no purpose?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's a purpose, whether we acknowledge, agree with it, or can support it. But I think sometimes there's definitely the feeling that we are pawns of one sort or another.
But I think is the core of it. How does one get evidence? So for Cash Landrum, how do you prove that was some kind of test aircraft that may be some kind of experiment with nuclear propulsion?
Well, on these government projects, there's one thing that I think there's so many things that have been proven because there's got to be people to support them, and there's got to be engineers and scientists involved. And I think that there's it's like a tree that's got long roots. You should be able to track some of that down. So that's why the things where you can find no evidence whatsoever, those things I think are much less credible. And the things where you can track some hardware and at least identify the fact that there was a helicopter that can be identified, that's hopeful. And and if you can tie it to some known projects, like you said, there are other mind control projects. So maybe there's something you can track personnel. There's we may be frustrated, but at least if there's not even some dots to connect, then you have nothing to work with.
That's so difficult, but don't you think after all these years, evidence would be available? I mean, what value from an intelligence standpoint would some kind of test aircraft from 30, 40 years ago have?
As evidence, well, there are cases where they've had test aircraft, and it's especially in Area 51, they'll bury it, but usually there's some sort of generation from one project to another. There's usually not something that's, one type of thing that's developed for one mission. There was a project around the time of Cash Landing where they had put it was a assisted takeoff, this credible sport where it was a C-130. It was short takeoff and landing, and there was pilot error, I think, and one crashed. But that technology, it was kind of weird, but the way they assembled it, it was existing technology put together quickly for a specific purpose, but it crashed and burned, and that was kind of a one-off thing, in that the mission that it was intended for, which was hostage rescue, didn't work out, but it ties into what I was saying earlier, that you could trace that to other projects. We have film of it, and engineers and things. So, I think it staggers my imagination to think that there are these projects that are just completely without a trace, of a witness or any engineering whatsoever. So those, I don't know. I think there's got to be something. And when you can't find anything for a long time, it makes me wonder if there's anything to it.
So there you go. In a few moments, by the way, we'll be joined by our favorite paranormal blogger himself, Red Pill Junkie. Now, as you know, Red Pill, and his real name is Miguel, was present at a certain event in Mexico City to discuss the topic that shall not be named. We probably won't get back into that anymore. I think we're sick of it, as Curt is, no doubt. But he'll be joining us about a lot of subjects. We have plenty of questions from our listeners. But we also want to tell you this about the Paracast Plus. Now, the Paracast Plus is a way for you to get the ad-free version of this radio show, free of 41 minutes of network ads, and our exclusive podcast called After The Paracast, all for a modest monthly, annual, or 5-year subscription rate. And if you go for the year or 5 years, you get a free copy of Chris O'Brien's incredible book, Stalking the Tricksters. Okay? So how about that? To find out more, go to plus.theparacast.com. That's plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. On tap, Red Pill Junkie with Gene and Curt Collins. You're in
The Paracast.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Talk to a sales rep at iWeb.com. Use the promo code TechNightOwl for a special discount.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there is The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
Hi, this is Walt Augustinowitz. I'm the founder and CEO of ID Stronghold. By now you've heard our commercials about wallets that protect you from electronic pickpocketing. 10 years ago, I created a way to protect my own cards from prying eyes after government officials started talking about issuing a national ID card with a built-in radio chip called RFID. I felt having to broadcast my personal information was an invasion of privacy. Soon after, it was also announced that credit cards, debit cards, U.S. passports, hotel room keys, and even transit passes would all soon incorporate RFID. It was then I formed ID Stronghold to share my inventions in blocking RFID signals with the world. There are a lot of misconceptions out there today about RFID. I encourage everyone to get informed and get protected. Please go to idstronghold.com and get the facts and the wallets, sleeves, or badge holders you need to protect your personal financial data. You'll be pleasantly surprised that through our direct sales model, you won't pay more than other comparable unprotected wallets. It is as though the protection is free. Visit idstronghold.com today.
You are an individual with your own thoughts, decisions, and actions. So why should you be penalized for not enrolling in the subpar health insurance mandated by the government? Be truly independent. Visit libertyoncall.org. LibertyOnCall.org is a bold, innovative alternative allowing you to take back control and make your own decisions about your healthcare. Mention this ad when you call to learn more. 800-714-6993. That's 800-714-6993. LibertyOnCall.org. Call today.
Sciatica, lower back pain, hip pain, poor posture. If you suffer from any of these problems, get ready to relax. Introducing an amazing product that's been in the market for over 25 years, the Sacro Wedgie. It was invented by a football coach using a common-sense osteopath technique. He created this device to help his athletes by isolating and supporting the sacrum, which is the keystone of our anatomy. This wedge-shaped bone is in the center of our hips, where a lot of pain starts. Simply relax 20 minutes daily on the amazingly simple Sacro Wedgie and let gravity do the work, helping muscles rebalance and start releasing nerves. Sit in the Sacro Wedgie at the computer or while traveling to help correct posture to finally help relieve those stubborn aches and pains for only $33.95. It's made in the USA, so click the family-owned website at sacrowedgie.com, spelled SACROWEDGY.com, or call 1-800-737-9295. That's 1-800-737-9295. Relax your back pain away with the Sacro Wedgie.
Now, a twice as nice Twin Kit special offer from Complete H2O Minerals for all GCN listeners. Get a Complete H2O Minerals Twin Kit with 33 different minerals, vitamins, and amino acids all in a liquid form. Enough for 2 people for 1 month. Regular price $89.95, but now Complete H2O Minerals is offering the Twin Kit for $69.95. And all GCN listeners receive a bonus 16-ounce bottle of Ionic Silver absolutely free with free shipping. A $120 total value. Hurry, limited time offer. Call 803-794-4767 or click CompleteH2OMinerals.com.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
Before we get on with our guests, Red Pill Junkie and our guest co-host, Curt Collins, just want to tell you something. We had a little contest, or at least our friends over at UFOMG.com had a contest. And here's the result. We'd like to congratulate Paracast Forum member Liquid Coax on winning a 5-year membership to the Paracast Plus. That's from UFOMG.com, your source for out-of-this-world news. Liquid Coax. Isn't that a good name, guys?
Colorful.
We have guest co-host Curt Collins, and Red Pill Junkie Chris O'Brien is off on emergency visits, so he'll let us know later how things are going with that. Meantime, we've got so many thousands of things to talk about here, and we've gotten some questions from listeners, including one that could practically fill the entire show. So, Red Pill, we're going to keep you busy.
Okay.
I'm going to ask this question because we have to. Last time you were on the show, we were talking about the topic that shall not be named, that you went to attend that shindig in Mexico City.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we'll get past this very quickly, but obviously we're curious, our listeners who may not have followed the forum discussions after that. We had you on. We also had Richard Dolan on very briefly for about 20 minutes. Looking at that whole episode, and now, of course, you're on the show with a member of the Roswell Slides research group. I said that term. What's your end-term feeling of that whole thing?
Oh, boy. Well, I guess that by now, most of the UFO community is actively avoiding or dismissing the whole issue, thanks in large part to Curt and the Roswell Research Group and how quickly they managed to decipher the placard next to the alleged Roswell mummy, which in the end turned out to be what we all initially thought, which was, a common, the mummy of a child. So I think that most of us are decided to move on, but some of the main players seems to be unwilling to leave that bandwagon, main of all, Jaime Maussan, who is still maintaining that the people behind the Roswell the research group didn't actually manage to prove conclusively that the body they showed in these slides was the same mummy found by Ray Palmer in Montezuma Palace, and which was eventually then displayed at the Mesa Verde Museum. He's still claiming that no, there are some inconsistencies, there are some physical differences. The body in the slides was larger in length to the one found by Palmer. All those things, he was actually planning to release a sequel to the Big Witness event. He was calling it Big Witness 2, and it was going to be some sort of scientific panel again, with mainly Mexican specialists. Mm-hmm. So Maussan was actually in the midst of organizing a new event, a sequel to the Big Witness event on May 5th. He was calling it Big Witness 2. Unlike the first event, the first show or spectacle, if you want to call it, this was going to be free, admission free, depending of the amount of people who were going to, willing to attend. It was going to be held in it's like a medical center here in Mexico City, a very important medical center in the city. And it was going to try to show the expert testimony of specialists he was going to gather in order to show how there were still many things to be answered. So Maussan was supposedly going to organize a second event to Big Witness. It was going to be Big Witness 2. It was not going to be like the first one. First of all, it wasn't going to be a pay-per-view event. He said it was going to be free of charge. It wasn't going to be held up in an auditorium like the last time. This was going to be held in the Siglo XXI Medical Center, which is pretty important, like a hospital, also like a medical center college here in Mexico City. So there he was going to have like a panel with experts he was going to gather in order to show how the body in the slides, was indeed, well, if not an extraterrestrial, at least anomalous, from the point of view of what the things that his experts, managed to observe from the slides, And he said that anyone who wanted to debate or debunk the slide was free to come by, So it was interesting to see what was going to happen, but at the last minute he didn't cancel. He said he postponed it. The experts actually asked him to postpone the event, I think, until September or October, until they managed to review all the new evidence that had surfaced, thanks to the work of the Roswell Research Group and other researchers, the ones who managed to find the FOIA papers about the Ray Palmer's mummy.
Hey, it's not Ray. It's S.L. Palmer. Ray Palmer is innocent in this instance.
He's also dead, but that's another story. Actually, no, because there is a Ray Palmer who is a character in the TV show Arrow.
Right,
based on the Atom, which was a character that goes back to like the 50s and was based on the other Ray Palmer in the sense of the name. The writer of the comic book borrowed the name Ray Palmer. But that's another story. Anyway, let's not worry about that. So the point here is he's going to stage a free event, hopefully to give another spin on the situation. And I think he was very smart not to bother doing that, whatever excuse he presents.
Yeah, and he also managed to dodge that bullet of the prize reward he had offered. I think he offered $5,000 to anyone who managed to find a second photograph of the mummy. And two people claimed to do just that, but he, refused to give in, and he didn't give them the money.
Well, we can certainly argue about that, but let's argue about this first. We have Red Pill Junkie. Our guest co-host this week is Curt Collins. And we're talking briefly about the aftermath to the topic that shall not be named. Gene and Curt Collins, you're in
The Paracast.
The nation's largest independently owned and operated talk radio network. The Genesis Communications Network. GCN. We've been patiently waiting while you tried to ignore us, waiting while you acted like we didn't exist, waiting for our chance to be taken seriously. The wait is over. GCN is available 24/7 at GCNlive.com. Navigate through news from your favorite hosts and download archives of past shows. Download the app on your smartphone or tablet or visit GCNlive.com for instant access and live streaming. GCNlive.com, the future of talk radio, now at your fingertips.
We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit, then carting to a private bank, having it lent back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Hi, Ted Anderson. I'm placing a silver dollar in a book explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS or state in back taxes, you know they'll never stop coming after you. With bank levies, wage garnishments, they'll even seize your home or business. The good news? A government program for tax debt forgiveness. It's called the Fresh Start Initiative.
I'm Paul Sibley with U.S. Tax Shield. We can help navigate the new laws, get you protected, and resolve your tax issues permanently.
Call the experts at U.S. Tax Shield now for your free consultation and get a guaranteed quote to resolve your case. Call 800-436-6451. That's 800-436-6451.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich, working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare, having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network, you'll find hundreds of work-from-home opportunities that you can literally start today and be earning money as soon as next week. Go to freedom106.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss. Get out of the rat race. Work from home. Go to freedom106.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom, the number 106.com. Go to freedom106.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You be the boss. Go to freedom106.com.
I am a 47-year-old female and had a heart attack in 2005. This is Alice from New Jersey. I still get angina, even with 4 stents. I was taking nitro 2 or 3 times a week. The very first day after taking Heart and Body Extract, the chest pain was gone. Now I don't wear a nitro patch.
Learn the secrets of an effective, natural, 100% organic nutritional supplement for a healthy heart and circulation at hbextract.com.
This is Jacques Vallée. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Chris O'Brien's off this week. We have Curt Collins as our guest co-host who filled in literally within minutes of my asking, and that's amazing that he did that, and we really appreciate it. Our guest is Red Pill Junkie, a blogger on all things paranormal, on Fortean topics, etc., etc. Now, before we go on, you've been listening to this, Curt Collins. You are a member of the Roswell Slides research group, so you're one of the people who exposed this whole mess. What do you have to say or ask Red Pill before we go on?
Well, I did listen to the show and heard about his experience in Mexico City, and that was interesting to hear from a perspective of an audience member. Well, really, the thing I've got here's a question from Burnt State, which is, he asked about the opinion of the group that I worked on, and you don't have to pull any punches because I'm here. But he also asks, let's see, let me read this directly. If the teamwork with skeptics and UFO proponents believe in working together from different backgrounds, he said, is this a good future direction for ufology? And do you think that it needs to be more interdisciplinary?
Well, I completely agree. Yes, I think it was a very positive development. The fact that the Roswell Research Group was composed of people of, let's say, both sides of the argument, people who are pro-UFO, like, for example, Grace Rutkowski, people who are in what would say, come unashamedly skeptic about the topic, like, Lance Moody, and people who might be, in the radical center, like you yourself, Curt, I think it's actually a much more interesting attitude to take. I myself prefer to be maintain myself in the excluded middle as much as I'm able. But yeah, I hopefully that kind of momentum could be maintained and maybe replicated in dealing with other types of other famous cases. Maybe your particular area of expertise, the Cash Landrum case of 1980, or maybe, I don't know, Emerson Forrest, also from the 80s. If we would manage to get a team of people with different backgrounds, different areas of expertise, different different disciplines that they could bring to the table, and a different view of opinions, and they manage to keep their egos in check, and trying to let the evidence lead them wherever it may be. I think that could be one of the most important things to happen to this field in a long, long time.
Long and short of it, Curt, are you still in touch with your fellow Roswell Slides study group members?
The group was informal, more of a discussion group. And yes, we've gotten ourselves into something else. Have you heard about this case, the video from the Homeland Security from Puerto Rico?
Mm-hmm.
Explain this to our listeners, because they don't follow all this, nor do they follow necessarily forum discussions. I wish they would.
In April 2013, Homeland Security, it was originally thought to be a helicopter, but it turned out to be a plane, filmed an object moving over the airport in Puerto Rico. There was a video that was released in almost a year later that was real low quality, and eventually a higher quality. I guess I don't know if it was. I guess by nature it has to be second generation as opposed to the other one, which was shot off a laptop screen. So it was much clearer, and there was a lot of confusion about where it came from and things. Well, it seemed to be over and done with. It was just one of these flash in the pan videos that come along. Well, this group called the Scientific Coalition for Ufology has released this massive 161-page report studying in great detail. And these people, I think they're exclusively made up of MUFON members, but are not. It's not a MUFON study. As I understand it, that came about because the person that came forward with the information required confidentiality and that not be handled through an organization. So it's a strange sort of thing. But anyway, they put Robert Powell, I think I forget his title in MUFON, but I think he leads a scientific advisory board, and Rich Hoffman, who is the STAR team, their special investigations division. He's involved in that, and Morgan Beal, who's he's from Florida. I think he was the state section director. I'm not sure his exact title, and several other people. So working together, they had a radar expert. They're looking at all these different elements of the case, and they came to the conclusion that it's something unexplained. It kind of looks like a black blob flying around, and the airplane that's tracking it is flying in a circle. So it's kind of difficult to tell what the motion is. But they say that this object is independently powered. It's shot with a thermal camera, and they said that there's a heat signature of it, and it's hotter than the surrounding area, so it has to have some internal power source. So and then, of course, the most amazing thing is at one point it seems to dive into the ocean and travel beneath the water for some point, and then arise without losing speed, and then splits into two objects. So whether this is some sort of plasma thing, I'm not sure exactly what they're suggesting, but they're convinced that this is all genuine and it's not camera malfunction or mirage or anything. So their report leaves it. They're not saying it's alien, but they're saying it's a genuine unexplained case. So we have a new group with some of the members of the Roswell Slides group are in this, and they've invited people to examine it, to verify the results, to challenge them, and if they don't want someone to just criticize it, but they want someone to submit a paper where their data can be compared to a challenging data.
Let me ask you very quickly here. Are you giving the group a name? Obviously, you can't refer to it as Roswell Slides anymore.
The temporary name is Puerto Rico Research Review, but I'm not going to have that tattooed. So basically, every project you take on, assuming you take on more projects,
will have its own unique name.
Yeah, this is almost as much of an accident as the first group was. So, and by the way, we are not the only people looking into this. There's a lot of individuals that are working into this. I hear that there's some other groups. So, I don't know if the RSRG inspired any of this activity, but I'm glad that a lot of people are looking at this. I mean, there's some data to be examined, and the guys putting this on, they've put in a lot of work into this. I find some things that they're claiming to be controversial, but this is, by the way, I think there's no chance that this is like a museum photo. Their film seems to actually be genuine in what they say. Now, whether or not the story and the conclusions are right, that's something else. But we have something tangible here to examine.
Quickly speaking here, would you like to name any of the other members of the group, or rather not?
Well, yeah, there's Isaac Coy, the UK researcher, he's really sort of taken the lead in this. And Chris Rutkowski is back for this. We have some of our evil skeptics back. We've got Lance Moody and Tim Prenny. Gilles Fernandez is in this. Jose Antonio Caravaca. But also some people that you might not expect. And, some of those, I'm not sure if I actually got the okay to name yet, but there are some members of MUFON. There's a famous photographic expert with a background in naval field who you would recognize.
I don't want to use the name, but I don't want to say Bruce Maccabee, but we have Curt Collins and we have Red Pill Junkie with Gene and with Curt as our guest co-host. You're in
The Paracast.
Great minds think alike. The network for the independent-minded. The Genesis Communications Network. GCN.
Conspiracy Journal is your #1 source for the hidden world of the weird and strange. We bring you thought-provoking and controversial material for free-thinking individuals who are seeking what is really going on in our world today. Some of this material may adversely affect you. Other pieces are meant to enlighten. Either way, be prepared to be intrigued by such things as the reality of UFOs, ghosts, strange creatures from time and space, hidden conspiracies, time travel, Nikola Tesla, suppressed technology, and a whole lot more. You can find out more by visiting our website at conspiracyjournal.com. There you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter sent directly to your email address. Find out what they don't want you to know.
Hey, Berkey Guy here. Are you still drinking unfiltered tap water? Does your water contain chlorine or fluoride? Will you have drinkable water in an emergency? The Berkey Guy is here to help you remove these and other potential contaminants from your water, thus helping you drink clean, purified water. We offer Berkey water purification systems at the lowest available prices online. Don't go another moment without Berkey system. Over the last 10 years, we've helped thousands drink clean, purified water. Join them by visiting goberkey.com or call me, the Berkey Guy, at 877-886-3653. That's 877-886-3653.
We've been patiently waiting while you tried to ignore us, waiting while you acted like we didn't exist, waiting for our chance to be taken seriously. The wait is over. GCN is available 24/7 at GCNlive.com. Navigate through news from your favorite hosts and download archives of past shows. Download the app on your smartphone or tablet or visit GCNlive.com for instant access and live streaming. GCNlive.com, the future of talk radio, now at your fingertips.
We the people grow.
Okay, open your mouth and say ah.
Ah. When your child has a sore throat, you need to know when to get help. The doctor recommended Say Ah Sore Throat Exam is your solution. The scientifically designed oral retractor offers a clear view of the throat, relaxing the tongue and minimizing gag reflex. Compare with the medical grade chart website and app. Then you'll know just what to tell your doctor. A wellness plan in your hands in minutes. Go to SayAhHNow.com. SayAhNow.com, the new mainstay for every family's first aid kit.
Making the right decisions is a challenge to investors. Are we going to see economic growth, slide into a recession, or at worst, depression? Hi, Ted Anderson from Midas Resources. We all know when a company acts irresponsibly, divesting ourselves in a move towards safety is prudent. When the market becomes volatile, U.S. Treasuries are a safe haven. But what do you do when the U.S. government overextends itself and spends beyond its means? Many investors are turning toward gold as a common-sense alternative to traditional paper investments. Midas Resources has put together a powerful book titled 10 Reasons to Own Gold, discussing costs, benefits, risks, featuring full-color illustrations, weights, and measures. The book is free and can be yours by calling 800-686-2237. Paper investments are dwarfed by gold's 6,000-year history. Discover how gold may be right for you and your IRA by calling 800-686-2237. Whether buying or it's time for you to sell, the book is free. Call 800-686-2237.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pulaski of the Pulaski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states. Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937.
Hi, this is Bryce Abel. I'm the producer of Dark Skies, the co-author of AD After Disclosure, and you are listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
So is it Bruce Maccabee?
Yes.
You see? Unfortunately, we knew. Okay, so you got a really stellar group of people there covering all viewpoints, Curt Collins.
Yeah.
Miguel, are you familiar with this case, and what's your opinion of things?
I read something about it on Open Minds and also on an article written by Micah Hanks on Mysterious Universe, in which he mentioned this MUFON group that seemed to have surfaced specifically to analyze this video. Yeah, I think that one of the things they try to see is whether this was one of these new Flimmer drones that the Navy has been developed. Flimmer meaning that it's a drone capable of flying and also swimming underwater, and apparently they discarded this possibility.
Curt, any further response before we move on?
I hope that you can get some of the guys from the investigation on the show to explain their position. As I say, if we're looking at things. Sadly, I'm lacking in the technical skills, but we've got people looking at the individual frames and everything. And there's a lot of complex data because they really put a lot into this, trying to correlate it with radar and which we're not certain if the radar matches what was seen and. But there's a lot of data from this, coordinates from this thermal camera. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting. And, I don't know if the outside world, if this is just going to be something that the UFO community is interested in. But, it's if people want scientific investigation of UFOs, well, here's an instance where people are really trying to do that. So, whether this rises or falls, it's, I think it's a good investigation.
Well, we look forward to further word on it. And yes, we would be interested in having other members of your group on the Paracast. Let's talk about this off the air and find out who'd be suitable. Maybe get a pro and con opinion, get a cross-section. But this seems to be a very promising development in UFO research, which is rather than operate under the normal structure of a group, you have an ad hoc group. It forms to investigate maybe one case or a series of cases, and that's it. You do your work, and you get on with your life.
Mm-hmm. And you share everything with everyone freely online.
Yeah, things move a lot faster in this manner, and the it's not. Well, you remove one of the big stumbling blocks, which is conclusion first and then try to justify with data. With this, the data being shared, it leads the investigation, just as Miguel was talking about earlier.
No, I hear you. Any further response to Burnt State's question before we move on?
I think that we've pretty thoroughly covered that. So I have a question of my own for Miguel before we move on to something I've noticed. He describes himself as a Fortean. Not everyone knows what that is. And what's the difference between that and just being interested in UFOs?
Well, I think that being labeling myself as a Fortean, and unfortunately, I think that maybe you will agree with me that labels sometimes can be so bothersome. Oh, this guy is a skeptic. Oh, this guy is a ufologist. Oh, this guy is a cryptozoologist. All these labels sometimes are, they're not counterproductive. So in that way, Fortean is probably the best or the most comfortable label for me, because it allows me the liberty to research and write about not just UFOs, but many other topics that, in my own personal opinion, are also deeply linked to the UFO phenomenon, like, for example, ESP, remote viewing, near-death experiences, I think, which are probably right now even more popular in mainstream culture than UFOs themselves. I think that the last couple of years have seen several best-selling books dealing with near-death experience. Yeah, so in my opinion, near-death experiences are right now more popular in mainstream culture than UFOs. To give you an example, Dr. Ivan Alexander's book, which was, I think, published a couple of years ago, was a bestseller. And I think that right now, the average person is more interested in near-death experiences than UFOs. And I think that I can understand that, because by the end of the day, we all are very interested in what will happen to us when we die, because if there is one thing certain in this world, like the old saying goes, it's death and taxes, is that sooner or later we are all going to have to answer that question, what happens to us after we die. But getting back to the thing about being a Fortean is that it gives you that kind of liberty, like seeing all these phenomena and seeing where they interject. And I honestly feel that those interjections may open up new avenues in order to solve maybe one of them or maybe all of them. I think that it places where these phenomena interject or correlate with one another are things that we need to look deeper.
Well, let me just tell our listeners, in case you're wondering, in terms of near-death experiences, there is a TV show on one of the cable networks that just ended its season called Proof. And it's produced by Kira Sedgwick, who you probably know is also the wife of Kevin Bacon. So that's a 1 degree separation as opposed to 6 degrees. In any case, it stars Jennifer Beals as a heart surgeon who had a near-death experience when one of her children died in an accident. And then a lot of the show is where she hooks up with this billionaire, played by Matthew Modine, who is dying of cancer and wants to know if we go on after death. So that's what the show is about. It's actually, I thought it's a really good show. So if you catch it like on Netflix or something, or the reruns on the cable TV networks, I think it's TNT, you will, I think, enjoy it. Do you get anything like that in Mexico, Miguel? Do you get TNT or USA Network?
If you have cable, yes. So TNT is one of my favorite channels. Although I must say, I stopped watching TV regularly years ago. I may have to regain my time to watch TV now that the X-Files are coming back.
Well, at least for 6 weeks starting in January.
Yeah.
It's
I think that the short term is going to benefit the X-Files because with the old series, the fact that it lasted so long, it kind of like damaged the narrative, especially when it comes with the mythology. It becomes too complicated.
Well, you see, part of the problem also is with a full TV season, you've got to have 22 or 23 shows. And it's very difficult to have 22 or 23 one-hour shows. But the cable networks, and now more the traditional TV networks, will have what's called a limited series, not a mini-series, which is 3 or 4 episodes, but say a mini-series of 10 or 13 episodes. And that's what the cable networks do quite frequently. And that way, the show's around long enough for you to enjoy, but doesn't stay around too long to run out its welcome. Because a lot of shows, when they try to do that, and we can see the X-Files, you can't be original 22 or 23 times a year. Consider some of the best shows. Well, people like Doctor Who. What is it, 10 or 13 shows a year? Something like that. So some of the best shows have the shorter run seasons. So that goes back to the whole thing. And that may be one reason right there why X-Files just overstayed its welcome. If it had fewer episodes per year, maybe it would still be broadcast. Ran out of steam. And that's why some series will, rather than just keep going year after year, they'll end at the top, quit while they're ahead before they jump the shark, which is where all the creativity is out the window. And that goes back to an old episode of Happy Days where Fonzie jumped a shark. That's how it comes. I don't know where we started this. Red Pill Junkie is here. Our guest co-host is Curt Collins. You're in
The Paracast.
Not just an alternative to the mainstream media. We're the premier independent talk radio network. We are GCN.
Ray Perkins, a reclusive veteran burned out from the Gulf War, lives tortured by relentless, perplexing nightmares. Nightmares of a horrific battle in deep space and of a mysterious woman suffering in agony for her devastated world. A woman not yet born, calling across centuries to him. Then, a coincidence leads him to his destiny, his chance to alter the universe. Attack of the Rockoids. The former fiction editor for Star Wars and Indiana Jones, Robert Simpson, writes, "The soul of the novel Attack of the Rockoids lies in its heart and passion for building a convincing tale of a love that spans the galaxy. A thrilling story. Attack of the Rockoids is available now. Read a sample chapter and get a special discount off of the cover price at our website, rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com. Attack of the Rockoids, a novel in the grand science fiction tradition."
That's the sound your brain makes when you realize you're buying something and forgot the coupon. Online or in a store, knowing that you're missing a deal is the worst. You need the app from Retail Me Not right now. Get thousands of coupons from 50,000 stores like Kohl's, Domino's, Best Buy, and more with crazy deals like 60% off, free shipping, and free gifts with purchase. You can get a text invite to download the Retail Me Not app 100% free right now for Apple or Android. Just text the code UPDATE to 42767. Then just show your phone at checkout to save. It literally couldn't be easier. It's 2015. Keep your coupons in your phone. Stop what you're doing and text UPDATE to 42767. Listeners will get a text with a link to download it 100% free. Never forget another coupon again. Text the code UPDATE to 42767 right now. That's UPDATE to 42767. Message and data rates may apply. For terms and privacy, visit retail.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
The continental flare. of the Paracast from Red Pill Junkie. Curt Collins is our guest co-host on the Paracast. Chris O'Brien is off this week on an emergency, but probably will be with us for After the Paracast. Reminder, don't forget to join up with the Paracast Plus at plus.theparacast.com. You get the ad-free version of this show, higher quality audio, and a little bit better sounding with Red Pill Junkie. He's connecting from Skype in Mexico City, and the reception is not as good as it could be, but we can all hear him, so it's not a big problem. But if it isn't quite high fidelity, maybe it's upper middle fidelity, that's the reason. We also have a second radio show called After the Paracast, which is like 30 to 40 minutes of freewheeling discussion, sometimes with guests, sometimes without guests. That's included as part of the package. Also, if you subscribe for 1 year or 5 years, you get a free copy of Chris O'Brien's Stalking the Tricksters, the ebook version. Go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. So we're talking here, and I kind of segued into pop culture and a TV series about the greater interest in life after death. So since you raised the subject, Red Pill Junkie, do you believe we go on, or is it all blackness after we, as they say, give up the ghost?
Well, the most honest answer I could give is I don't know, right? I suspect that some part of our consciousness does survive physical death. I think that there's Dr. Sam Parnia, who is a medical professional who has been conducted very interesting research in these matters, and they have. He has concluded that at least for 4 minutes, it can be scientifically established that consciousness survives physical death. And after longer than that, we really can't know. We really can't know if consciousness survives indefinitely. We can't even deduce the fact that the near-death experiences proves the existence of a deity, heaven and hell and all that jazz. But to me, at least, it proves that the current materialistic paradigm that equates mind with brain needs to be updated, or needs to be, cast aside, and a new paradigm must rise from that.
Since you raised that, I was thinking here in terms of near-death experiences, there's also a TV show called Stitchers on ABC Family Network. And there what they do is they posit that the newly dead will, for a time, still have a slight amount of brain activity. So what they do is they stitch into that activity to try to recall the circumstances under which a person died. And usually it's somebody who dies under tragic circumstances due to a criminal act, and that forms the basis of the series. Not that any of this relates to fact, but it's just the obsession with near-death experiences and like that. Now, how, though, do we relate to any of that, Miguel, to the interest in UFOs and stuff like that? Is E.T. a spirit of the dead?
I don't know, but well, maybe. I think that this is a great segue in order to acknowledge the passing of Anne Strieber, Whitley Strieber's wife, who sadly passed away last week. And it's interesting to bring her up because she managed to edit this book that was formed by the thousands and thousands of letters that she and her husband received after Whitley Strieber published his seminal book, Communion, and this book was the Communion Letters. I think that she managed to read 14,000 letters sent by people who claim to have had similar experiences than that of her husband. And one of the things that she managed to deduct from this, she concluded and told her husband, Whitley, that this experience, the alleged alien abduction experience, had something to do with what happened to us after we died. And I happen to agree with that. I think that what we now call the alien abduction experience, it has in fact more to do with what happens to human beings after they cross the realm of, the veil of the afterlife, than with scientists coming to this planet in a structured craft.
Okay, so you're saying here that an so-called alien abduction is really akin to a near-death experience?
I think that the alien abduction experience shares several interesting similarities with the near-death experience, and we need to look into those similarities, and trying to find out why they are so similar.
Well, can you be more specific about the similarities, more information about them?
Well, there are several abductees who have claimed to see dead relatives, inside the alleged spacecraft, right along with the gray beings conducting the so-called medical examination in which the abductees submitted, and there's also, claims of seeing beings that look like, almost angelic in appearance, and here I'm reminding the account of Betty Andreasson, and I think that one of the beings that she observed during one of her abduction experiences was, tall Nordic-like humanoids wearing, white robes and without any shoes, they were barefoot, and that is kind of the things that also is reported in near-death experiences, how these being kind of like a being of light that radiates, like unconditional love. And then there is the so-called life review, in which the near-death experiencer is given a choice on whether he wants to die or return back to his or her life. There is also this idea that the beings in the abduction experience and the near-death experience communicate directly through to the minds of the experiencer, like telepathy. So I think these and other things that I probably am leaving behind, to me, are fascinating, to me. And let's also, point out that these kind of elements can be also found in the psychedelic experience, the experiments carried out by Dr. Richard Strassman, in which he gave patients a certain amount of DMT. And some of those patients claim to have had contact with non-human entities.
Now, one thing kind of bothers me here when we talk about near-death experiences compared to a UFO abduction. In a near-death experience, the assumption here is that the heart has stopped briefly, either because of illness or for medically necessary reasons. The heart stops, and that's when the experience occurs. Now, when there's a UFO abduction, does the heart stop? Does anyone know? We only have like 40 seconds to answer this question, so I'm going to let it sit to our next segment. But it just kind of occurred to me when you were talking about similarities. And then, of course, that raises the bigger question. If we're perceiving this experience in different ways, do they all have the same cause? And you see it from a different standpoint depending on your physical state. Isn't this elaborate? It's also something I never thought of before, a resemblance of all those things. So I really want to thank you. Our guest is Red Pill Junkie. He is a blogger who really covers a wide range of paranormal subjects. We have Curt Collins, who's been a UFO investigator for a number of years, covering Cash Landrum and things like that. With Gene and Curt, you're in
The Paracast.
Do you need a website? Well, you can get a great deal on hosting services with Namecheap's legendary coupon code. They're offering substantial hosting discounts on shared hosting, business hosting, VPS hosting, reseller hosting, and even dedicated servers. Namecheap is preferred by millions. It's backed by a money-back guarantee. Use the coupon code LEGENDARY to cash in on the special deal at Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there is The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
Thousands of people seeking home security get ripped off every day, and the home security industry wants you to believe that's your only option. They've got hordes of salesmen out there trying to scare you into signing one of their long-term contracts. You get stuck writing huge checks month after month with no way out. It's robbery by contract, and it can cost you thousands. But there's a better way to protect your home. Simply Safe Home Security. Simply Safe has no contracts. None. You'll get award-winning 24/7 protection. Security professionals watching over your home, ready to instantly send police to the rescue for just $14.99 per month. That's less than half what most companies charge. Protect your home the smart way. Visit simplysafedefense.com today for an exclusive 10% offer and get a free keychain remote worth $25. Only when you go to simplysafedefense.com. simplysafedefense.com.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS or state in back taxes, you know they'll never stop coming after you. With bank levies, wage garnishments, they'll even seize your home or business. The good news? A government program for tax debt forgiveness. It's called the Fresh Start Initiative.
I'm Paul Sibley with U.S. Tax Shield. We can help navigate the new laws, get you protected, and resolve your tax issues permanently.
Call the experts at U.S. Tax Shield now for your free consultation and get a guaranteed quote to resolve your case. Call 800-436-6451. That's 800-436-6451.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
So here on the Paracast, Chris O'Brien is off this week. Curt Collins, our guest co-host. He's known as Sentry in our forums, Red Pill Junkie, usually known as Red Pill Junkie in our forums, is here, and we're discussing near-death experiences. So I mentioned this point, Miguel, and that is the heart stops for a near-death experience. Does it stop for an abduction?
Well, no, but we should also point out that sometimes near-death experiences happen when people are not on the brink of physical death. Maybe they are in a plane that is about to crash or something, and for a moment they experience some of the things of the near-death experiences, the life review, the life flashing before your eyes or something like that. And those people were not really in immediate danger. So I think what we could conclude is that these experiences, near-death experience, the psychedelic trip, the alien abduction experience, they happen in a non-ordinary state of consciousness. You see what I mean? They're not happening in your normal waking consciousness. It happens in a different state, maybe something akin to the state we reach when we are dreaming.
So can we assume then, regardless of what this is, that we're all dealing with interpretations of a single cause, a single type of event?
Perhaps, and we should be careful here not to conclude, yes, of course, this is the same phenomenon interpreted from a different cultural standpoint, even though I suspect that is the case, but, we should be mindful not to jump to conclusions. But then again, I think we need to look this with more closely than we have done it in the last 5 decades, in which we have been so certain that UFOs and alien abductions all have an extraterrestrial origin. And let's be honest, we still don't have any solid evidence to confirm that.
Well, some of these have one thing in common is the human brain. It's some sort of brain adventure. Yes. And I've never had an abduction experience, but I have had several instances of sleep paralysis. Some were just a sense of being frozen in the room and unable to move, and some of them kind of involved other dreams, but I never had that sort of thing where something sinister was taking me away. Some people think that it's just a dream state, but, it goes far beyond that with some people, I know.
Boy, what an area to explore.
We had one question that was, it's almost about prophecy. Now, this depends on Miguel's knowledge of the events. Wade asks, I'd like to know if Miguel is aware of Lauren Coleman's prediction of a theater attack on August 5th. There was one in Antioch, Tennessee. And if so, if you had opinions on it.
Lauren did send me an email linking to one of his latest blog posts at his blog, Twilight Language. And I'm sorry to say that I didn't find the time to read it. But I think that with Lauren, it's not a question of, whether he has, a Ouija board or some kind of scrying stone in order to foresee these events. I think that his methodology involves analyzing what he calls the Twilight Language, the name game or the things in which certain types of names or numbers tend to repeat themselves in some kind of catastrophic events, For example, one of the examples I could give is the Payet factor, I think that he calls it, in which Payet, which is a French word derived from the Fey, the fairy lore, the Fey folk, and it's also obviously found in the name of General Lafayette. And so the Payet factor talks about how this name repeats itself in certain types of catastrophes or disasters, and that seems to point out to some kind of very interesting, pattern in which it seems like the universe likes to use these kinds of patterns and numbers. And maybe if you pay attention to those kind of patterns, you may be able to foresee or predict a future event, although I'm skeptical in which the level of accuracy you might have with that kind of methodology. I think that you might be able to see, so maybe something is going to happen involving this number or this date or this name. But I don't think you can, accurately predict, this this thing is going to happen on so and so date, on so and so in this year, you know.
The mediums and such, they always accentuate the hits and let you forget about the misses. So I think every system, you know, of course, you know, they're fakes. I don't know. I wonder if this is all coincidence. I mean, it's definitely interesting.
I'm very open about the capacity of precognition of certain individuals, but I think that for most of us, that kind of precognition is very mild, and there also, you know, also centers on very, very trivial things. That maybe I might have a dream in which I will see, you know, a certain something, you know, someone wearing red shoes walking down the street, you know, and maybe the next day I will see, you know, someone wearing that kind of shoes, you know, and saying, oh, well, you know, I had a precognitive dream. But that doesn't mean I will be able to, you know, foresee the winning ticket of the lottery or something like that. Although I'm also very interested in how very dramatic events, like, for example, 9/11, seem to have some kind of ripple effect in the collective consciousness, you know. And there are experiments like what's the name of this experiment? An experiment in which they use number generators, you know, the random number generators, and they seem to be less random whenever something very big and very catastrophic is about to happen, like, for example, the 9/11 attacks in 2001 or the tsunami in 2004. So that seems to indicate that those kind of events have some kind of ripple effect from the future, affecting to our consciousness, you know, in the very moment prior to these events occurring.
Let's do our break here and we'll continue with this. Red Pill Junkie with Curt Collins, our guest host, and Gene Steinberg. You're in
The Paracast.
Free from the shackles of corporate America, we're the place for independent thinkers. GCN.
Okay, open your mouth and say ah.
When your child has a sore throat, you need to know when to get help. The doctor recommended Say Ah Sore Throat Exam is your solution. The scientifically designed oral retractor offers a clear view of the throat, relaxing the tongue and minimizing gag reflex. Compare with the medical grade chart, website, and app. Then you'll know just what to tell your doctor. A wellness plan in your hands in minutes. Go to SayAHHnow.com. SayAhNow.com, the new mainstay for every family's first aid kit.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237.
That's the sound your brain makes when you realize you're buying something and forgot the coupon. Online or in a store, knowing that you're missing a deal is the worst. You need the app from Retail Me Not right now. Get thousands of coupons from 50,000 stores like Kohl's, Domino's, Best Buy, and more with crazy deals like 60% off, free shipping, and free gifts with purchase. You can get a text invite to download the Retail Me Not app 100% free right now for Apple or Android. Just text the code UPDATE to 42767. Then just show your phone at checkout to save. It literally couldn't be easier. It's 2015. Keep your coupons in your phone. Stop what you're doing and text UPDATE to 42767. Listeners will get a text with a link to download it 100% free. Never forget another coupon again. Text the code UPDATE to 42767 right now. That's Update to 42767. Message and data rates may apply. For terms and privacy, visit retailmenot.com.
Everyone says or does something silly once in a while. But once that embarrassing thing is on the internet, it can spread like a terrible rash. Put it to rest. Get a free expert analysis today from Reputation.com. It only takes 30 seconds. 800-831-0771. We protect your online image by helping to make sure that when people search for you or your business, they find the most current, accurate information possible. Reputation.com. Because word travels fast. Call for a free analysis today. 800-831-0771. That's 800-831-0771.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Why do over 50% of North Americans suffer from some form of chronic ailment? Could it be due to a toxic overload? It's time to take back your life. Get the lead out as well as the cadmium, mercury, and calcium. Extendovite is a garlic cayenne supplement with 5 other herbs that acts like a natural Drano, cleaning out the stored toxins, restoring your energy and youthfulness that we've lost. If you would like to live your life free of sickness, pain, or fear, then Extendovite is for you. Available in either capsules or liquid, you too can see why Extendovite is the #1 heart drop available. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit our website at heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
Hi, this is James Fox from Chasing UFOs. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Curt Collins is our guest host. We have Red Pill Junkie joining us, and he was talking here about precognitive events. Let's continue. Red Pill?
So I'm very interested in this kind of phenomena, that seem to indicate that human beings do have a natural capacity for precognition, to foresee future events. But this seems to be an ability that if you don't nurture it from a very early age, you tend to lose it.
Are you suggesting then that a lot of people, maybe most people, are born with these added abilities, but because they become, as they say, integrated with society, they don't really get a chance to expand those capabilities or exercise them? Because obviously parents won't take it seriously unless they're involved in this subject. What is your position?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the case. Maybe parents freak out and they tell the children, you better knock that out, you better, cut that out because, people are going to think that you're a freak or something, And when children see the negative reaction from their family members and their peers, they will get dissuaded from experimenting with these latent abilities, So maybe if you are born in the type of culture that would see that as a very natural thing, like maybe in some hunter-gatherer tribe in the Amazons, in which people see that as, the natural talents of someone who is called to become a shaman or something, maybe that is the type of environment that would include those kinds of abilities into their social structure. But in our current materialistic paradigm, if you say that you can, listen to other people's thoughts or maybe, foresee things that are going to happen, you may be ended in some kind of insane asylum.
That doesn't make it easy. Doesn't make it encouraging.
Exactly.
There's a bunch of questions in our forum from Burnt State. You read one before. Anything relevant to what we're doing before we move on?
Well, a lot of them are on UFOs, but let me jump ahead here to one that kind of connects with what we've been talking about. He's asking a question, and I'm going to shorten and reword this and hopefully do it justice. He says that there are likely multiple sources for whatever the UFO phenomenon is. If you were a betting man, what would you say is responsible for the majority of the good cases, the extraterrestrial hypothesis, dimensional, cryptoterrestrials, the psychosocial theory, or some other personal favorite theory?
I don't know. I think that I listened to a round table that my friend Greg Bishop had with Richard Dolan and Peter Robbins at Nick Redfern recently, which they concluded, and I have to agree, that tossing out the ETH will be a very foolhardy thing to do in ufology. But at the same time, you should give equal time to other fringier theories, like, for example, the idea that this phenomenon might be related with a bigger aspect of our reality than we are able to perceive in our normal state of consciousness. I have come to the conclusion that the possible nature of the UFO is going to be probably stranger and more complex than we humans are currently able to entertain. I mean, anything I could conceive, our time travelers from the future, from some other planet, and whenever they interact with us, they look like Bigfoot ghosts or something like that. Any of those theories are going to be probably incomplete and as misguided as the theories they have for the faithful, in medieval Europe.
On that, do you think this relates to what we were talking about earlier about possible brain adventures? Do you? And I think I know Gene has talked about this kind of thing a lot, and I think it's kind of along the line of Jacques Vallée's thinking that much of what's actually reported is just our human interpretation of events, and maybe we can only understand things because maybe we've seen a flying saucer movie, and that gives us a tool to interpret the experience. What's your thoughts on that sort of thing?
Yeah, or maybe the phenomenon itself chooses to adopt a certain appearance in order to seem more palatable to a person given their current social background. I mean, I think that Terence McKenna was the one who said that the plant intelligence, behind psilocybin and ayahuasca, choose to appear to humans as an alien invasion, so we wouldn't freak out so much, in order not to scare us, because an alien invasion, as malignant or dreadful as that might sound, is something what we, in the end, we could understand. So they're aliens. They come from other planets that they want to invade us, or maybe use us for experiments or whatever. And in the end, that's as dreadful as that might be. It still has a modicum of relief because we can wrap our minds around it. But maybe what if the UFO phenomenon involves something that we can't wrap our heads around it? What if it's something that it's completely outside our normal mental references, and it has no option but communicate with us through metaphors, so through cultural metaphors that are at least make more sense to us, than the real thing.
I've mentioned this many times before. This brings to mind the movie Contact, based on the Carl Sagan book. Jodie Foster plays this radio astronomer, and supposedly she flies in a spaceship that doesn't seem to go anywhere, but takes her supposedly in her mind to another star system where she meets a being who looks like her dead father. And the being says to her, I am presenting myself this way because you wouldn't accept, I'm not quoting it, I'm just paraphrasing it, you wouldn't accept my real appearance. Mm-hmm. And that goes very highly into what you're saying, and very likely the producers of the film and the author of the book considered how an alien being would present themselves to us.
Yeah, another favorite of mine is the movie AI, directed by Steven Spielberg, in which, here a spoiler alert because I'm going to tell something about the end of the movie. The little android bot, David, encounters the blue fairy, which is nothing but a projection used by the super advanced AI from the future so they can communicate with him without, scaring him, So they are using something extracted from his mind and his, nascent religious beliefs, so they could interact with each other, So they use this mythical being, the blue fairy, the same way that maybe an alien intelligence would appear at us, maybe in the shape of, Jesus or something like that.
We'll continue with Red Pill Junkie. Please do not forget to check out the premium version of our show at plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. We'll continue with our guest co-host, Curt Collins, our guest, Red Pill Junkie. More to come. I'm Gene Steinberg. You're in
The Paracast.
Not just an alternative to the mainstream media. We're the premier independent talk radio network. We are GCN.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKEsoft.com. Lemkesoft.com. LEMKEsoft.com.
Silver has always been nature's very own antibiotic, and only one system allows you to produce an endless supply of nano-sized silver solutions right from the convenience of your home. Silver Lungs. With the addition of our unique lung delivery system, respiratory infections are targeted directly, where traditional oral administration simply cannot reach. This pioneering method also preserves the original particle sizes and delivers your silver solution directly into the bloodstream. See the Silver Lungs generator and lung delivery system at silverlungs.com. That's silverlungs.com.
The human body is more than 60% water. Your brain and muscles are 75% water. And your blood is 92% water. Water's vital to your body, and alkalizing your water is the key to keep it running at its best. AlkaVision Plasma pH drops keep your entire body healthy, boosts energy, promotes weight loss, and even fights cancer. Call 800-518-7615 or go to alkavision.com to find out more. That's alkavision.com.
You are an individual with your own thoughts, decisions, and actions. So why should you be penalized for not enrolling in the subpar health insurance mandated by the government? Be truly independent. Visit libertyoncall.org. LibertyOnCall.org is a bold, innovative alternative allowing you to take back control and make your own decisions about your health care. Mention this ad when you call to learn more. 800-714-6993. That's 800-714-6993. LibertyOnCall.org. Call today.
Mike Stenerson for Midas Resources. At no time in history have precious metals been more important, certainly not in my 22 years in the industry. The dollar has lost over 90% of its value in the last 60 years. No fiat currency has ever survived the government printing presses. Ours is not immune. The time is now to be proactive. 1-800-686-2237, extension 116. Anything tied to the dollar is at risk. CDs, annuities, 401ks, IRAs, stocks, bonds, you name it, so decide. Do you want to leave a legacy of wealth or debt for your family? The choice is yours. Call me at 1-800-686-2237, extension 116. That's 1-800-686-2237, extension 116. Be proactive, not reactive. Call 1-800-686-2237, extension 116.
Okay, open your mouth and say ah.
When your child has a sore throat, you need to know when to get help. The doctor recommended Say Ah Sore Throat Exam is your solution. The scientifically designed oral retractor offers a clear view of the throat, relaxing the tongue and minimizing gag reflex. Compare with a medical grade chart, website, and app. Then you'll know just what to tell your doctor. A wellness plan in your hands in minutes. Go to SayAhHNow.com. SayAhNow.com, the new mainstay for every family's first aid kit.
Hello, this is Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and you're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Our guest is Red Pill Junkie, and our guest co-host is Curt Collins. Chris O'Brien will be back next week. I'm Gene Steinberg, and we're exploring all sorts of unusual ramifications about UFOs. Now, one of the issues here with understanding possible life in outer space, Red Pill and Curt, is the fact that we're looking for Goldilocks-type planets. We're looking for extrasolar planets that are somewhat similar to Earth, like a twin of Earth or a virtual twin of Earth, on the assumption that we know life will originate on a planet like Earth. So let's look for a twin of Earth and perhaps we'll see life as we know it. But that doesn't fully define life, does it?
No, because maybe what we should be looking for is life as we don't know it, and this is something that the scientist, I think his name is Paul Davies, has been proclaiming, that is trying to get his colleagues to consider, how we are so not only from an anthropomorphic point of view, but also from a carbon-based point of view, we're always considering life from the few examples. From a cosmic point of view, few examples that we have here in our planet, and I remember recently reading these news articles, about how they managed to decode the DNA of octopuses, and they have concluded that for all intents and purposes, octopuses are aliens because their DNA has really nothing whatsoever to do with other species. So that's going and proves how little we really know still about, biology and the possibilities of life.
And certainly because something doesn't look human doesn't mean they're not smart and doesn't mean that they couldn't somehow develop a technology.
Exactly. Octopuses are incredibly smart. They are very tricksterish in their way of thinking. They can solve puzzles, they can communicate with each other using a completely different method of communication, using body movements and changing their colors, So if they could manage to develop some kind of culture, their language would be something completely, alien to ours.
So if ET comes here, all bets are off.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think how in the alien abduction experience, all the experiences claim that the aliens are able to seamlessly communicate with them telepathically, so that's, gives you pause, about, well, how easy will be for an alien species coming from God knows where else, to actually communicate to beings who are probably less advanced to them than, maybe ants will be to us, Imagine trying to communicate with an ant, how would you try to even begin? I think there's a saying by a philosopher who said that if a lion could speak English, you wouldn't understand what he said anyway.
I'm thinking here as you were talking about communicating with alien life, or perhaps alien life trying to communicate with us. We egotistically think they will try to communicate with humans. Of course, remember the movie Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, where this alien craft was trying to communicate with humpback whales. Mm-hmm. But the humpback whales during the 23rd century were extinct. So they had to go back to the past. It was kind of a funny movie, too. It was directed by the late Leonard Nimoy, as a matter of fact. A funny movie, too, in trying to show how someone from the future would react to the culture of the 20th century. And they had to kidnap 2 humpback whales and bring them to the 23rd century to basically save the planet Earth. But you think of the thought here behind that theory again. So fascinating, so egotistical on the part of humans to think that E.T. would look for us.
Mm-hmm. We might look like fleas to them, a nuisance.
They might go see my dog. They might come to see Teddy Bear. Maybe Teddy Bear is talking to E.T. right now.
Could be.
Gets wacky. Some more questions, Curt?
Sure. And now on some of these are UFO specific, but, we, feel free to broaden this out.
Well, obviously we're getting back into UFOs here, so it's a good time.
Yeah.
This one's from Burnt State. He starts off with the premise here. In your opinion, what are some viable options on how the ufological field can move forward, given that almost 70 years of study has yet to reveal any tangible answers about the big questions regarding what UFOs are or what they come from?
Well, I don't know about trying to find answers, but I think that one thing that the UFO community could try to do right now is trying to build some kind of centralized database of UFO information, some kind of, UFOpedia, for lack of a better word, and maybe in the being of a Wikipedia, it will be, open sourced, everyone will be able to participate, and it will, in my view, it will have to gather the pros and cons of every particular UFO case, given it maybe some kind of like a rating, maybe like a Rotten Tomatoes kind of rating. So maybe, saying like Billy Myers is 99%, with a 99% hoax, and maybe the Socorro case is 90%, a legitimate case or something like that. And that kind of site will have to have updated information, So any new available information from a given case will have to be, automatically updated to the page of that case, So people will see what new development have transpired, So it wouldn't give, like a black and white response, this case is false or this case is legit, It will give the viewer or the reader, the ability to form their own conclusion. But I think that a centralized database is something that could be achieved right now, if someone was willing to, go through the effort of building such a place.
That's interesting. I think that would be a battleground But it would sure be interesting. And there's one of the things that bugs me is that so often things like, fake documents or videos will be recycled to by someone who's new that comes along and they, oh, isn't this exciting? Like that FBI memo about the saucer, and it's just a retelling of the Aztec story, the hotel memo, I think it's called, and you see that revived every few months, and I even see the alien autopsy film from time to time. It's like, hey, look at this, and it's like some of these things, they should be killed stone cold dead, and that it shouldn't bother anyone again. And that might be a way to flag those as being something that's worthless, and go on to better things.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, if you Google that given case, the very first or second result to your Google search will be that centralized database, So like Wikipedia, it shouldn't be your only source of information, but it should be your starting point, so you wouldn't have to parse through all the available, manure that is online,
Yeah.
Well, talk about being frank. We've got more questions from listeners, by the way. Actually, more questions from Brent State, who's been on the show. He's one of our more prolific members of our forums at forum.theparacast.com. And a reminder, too, that if you want to ask a question of a guest, as soon as we know who that guest is, we'll post a topic or thread in the forums at forum.theparacast.com. You sign up, and you can ask our guest questions. That's how it goes. This week, we're talking about all things paranormal with noted blogger Red Pill Junkie. He also appears on a number of podcasts and comes on the Paracast every so often. Our guest co-host is UFO researcher, or Fortean researcher, and we'll have to ask him which he'd prefer to call himself. Curt Collins. I'm Gene Steinberg. You're in
the Paracast.
We are the premier independent talk radio network, the Genesis Communications Network, GCN.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there is The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on our distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It just stopped responding. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Check it out. iWeb.com. That's iWeb.com.
For over 5 years, you've been hearing about the Berkey guy, so you may know a few things about him. For example, you are well aware of the superior quality and effectiveness of Berkey water filters and accessories. But did you know the Berkeys have had independent lab tests done to prove just how effective they are? It's true, and he can email you the test results. Just visit goberkey.com. You may also know that the Berkey guy has helped tens of thousands of people get better prepared. Now here's something you may not know. GoBerkey.com has amazing specials and deals all the time on a wide variety of survival and preparedness products. Most ready to ship same day. Visit the Berkey Guy at GoBerkey.com and be sure to click the red Products on Sale Now button. You can always call toll-free 877-886-3653. Again, that's 877-886-3653. GoBerkey.com, home of the Berkey Guy.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
We still haven't gotten around, by the way, to doing that special contest where you listeners send us your recording of the Paracast, however you wish to do it. And for those who we get to use on the show, we'll find some kind of award. That's it. Red Pill Junkie Miguel is here with Curt Collins. We're getting more into UFOs now, and if we can't even think what the UFOs really are, what the source might be, what form they really take, Red Pill Junkie, how can we possibly ask for disclosure?
It's interesting, I was recently talking with a friend of mine how, in a way, UFOs are like a dark matter. You see physicists trying to study dark matter, but the fact is that they can't directly observe it or measure it. They can only measure the gravitational influence of dark matter in galaxies and whatnot. So maybe that is the approach that we should have with UFOs, maybe not trying to measure them directly, because let's be honest, this is a very fickle phenomenon. The UFOs, they don't sit still, they come and go, and they barely leave a trace. The traces they do leave are the effects they have on the persons who have observed it or maybe experienced it in a close encounter, So maybe that is one approach that we should try to have, is seeing the effects that the close encounter experience have had on witnesses, maybe immediately after the event, maybe a week after the event, a year after the event, 10 years after the event. See how they have progressed, see how maybe they change their religious or spiritual views after witnessing a UFO. Maybe they even managed to develop some kind of see ability, or maybe they were healed by the UFO sighting, like that famous Dr. X who was investigated by Jacques Vallée and Aimé Michel. So that's one thing that maybe we should look forward. But getting with disclosure, you are completely right, Gene. I mean, the problem I have with the disclosure movement is that they are so convinced about what they think the UFOs are, so ET is coming to this planet using metal spaceships. And that is the kind of thing they are demanding from the government. So if they don't get that as an answer, they're going to cry cover up and say, no, they are giving us this information. We want the truth. But what they're really saying is, we want the truth that we want to hear.
Well, this raises a bigger question here, is they are assuming what the answer must be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if all this other stuff applies, even if the government delivered the answer, it wouldn't be what they wanted or expected.
Yeah, I mean, if the government said, well, there is something that invades our airspace from time to time, and sometimes maybe, let's entertain the possibility that sometimes the phenomenon kidnaps, citizens from their bedrooms, and we can do nothing about it. That is not something that people are going to accept, that they think, they are so certain that the government is actually, in cahoots with the aliens, and they have made deals with them, from the time of President Eisenhower and whatnot. That is the mythology that has grown from the nuts and bolts ETH side of ufology, and I really don't see a way to get rid of it.
Well, this whole focus on supposed solid objects, that goes back to the 1950s. That was the original UFO theory.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like nobody's learned anything, or at least most of the people who view UFOs in terms of popular culture and the big organizations investigating it might as well be living in 1952.
Yeah, I think that also people in the ancient aliens community, they have this very big movie-ish way to think about paleo contact between non-human entities and ancient man. They obviously had to come in some kind of rockets, using spacesuits like the ones that used by NASA astronauts. So what if they didn't require any of that? So maybe what if they just needed those ancient ancestors, to just get into some kind of altered states of consciousness so they could have some kind of, mind transmission?
Well, of course, we look at the other way of doing it in the movie and the TV series based on Stargate, where we have this huge device that attaches into a wormhole and is connected at the other end in another galaxy or another star system by another similar device, and you simply walk through it, come out the other end a few seconds later, and you are elsewhere. Of course, it obviously makes for less wait time in reaching your destination, but it's a flick of an eye.
Mm-hmm. Or there's also this movie, a movie I really like, K-Pax, with this, also, spoiler alert, with this alien entity, Prot, who also happens to look very much like a human. And it
happens to be Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, exactly. And then you learn that the reason he looks like a human is because it's actually maybe, it leaves it open-ended, but it's like some kind of alien entity that has taken hold of a human host.
Well, we have another movie that did that, of course. I'm trying to remember Jeff Bridges.
Starman.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Well, no.
Jeff Bridges comes here, and he takes over the body of this woman's dead husband, I guess.
No, I think in that movie he actually grows a clone of the dead husband.
Oh, right, you're correct.
A hair, yeah.
In the movie, he takes on a form that's identical to her dead husband, but is grown. And maybe he retrieves that from her memories of him. And that causes a lot of freak out there.
Yeah.
And by the way, they actually tried to do a TV series of Starman, but it only lasted one season. And the guy who played the Starman, rather than getting Jeff Bridges, who doesn't do TV shows, they got the guy who played a pilot in Airplane.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I can picture him.
We couldn't take him seriously as E.T. Let's move on with the questions. We have to break in about a minute and a half, Curt. So why don't you ask another question, then we'll have the answer on the other side.
Oh, well, this is a big one, so he'll need a moment to think about this. And the question is from Burnt State, and it's, who's your favorite UFO thinker, living or dead, and why? And we'll let you go beyond UFO, should you choose to do so.
Well, that's easy. Jacques Vallée is like my number one UFO guy, and also because his thinking goes beyond UFOs and starts to deal with synchronicities and information theory and all that.
Well, that's a good start. Let's have a start on this here. Let me tell you very briefly that if you want to hear the ad-free version of the show, it's very simple. Go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. Check out our Paracast Plus premium package, hard to say 5 times fast. For a modest monthly, annual, or 5-year subscription rate, you get the ad-free version of the show, higher quality audio, the After the Paracast podcast, and also a free copy of Stalking the Tricksters, a book that changed the discussions about UFOs and the paranormal, from Christopher O'Brien. Chris is donating this book. He's giving up on royalties, giving you a free copy if you sign up for Paracast Plus for a year or 5 years. So think about that. Go to plus.theparacast.com. Once again, that's plus.theparacast.com. Well, we have Red Pill Junkie, who blogs in a number of places about all things paranormal. And before we let him go, he'll tell you where to find his work, so you can check it out. Or just Google Red Pill Junkie. There's only one, I guess. I don't think anybody else would dare use that name. So there can only be one, like the Highlander. There can only be one Red Pill Junkie. We also have the one, the only Curt Collins, who has studied a lot of key UFO cases like the Cash Landrum incident and was recently a member of this Roswell Slides research group and is continuing to do research on UFOs. You're in
the Paracast.
Neighbors, are you tired of dealing with a slow web hosting provider? Well, check out A2 Hosting and their screaming fast Swift server platform. They even have SSDs that load pages 300% faster than the competition. Ready to give your site a speed boost? Well, tell you what, neighbors, head on over to a2hosting.com. That's A2, that's number 2, A2hosting.com. Check out their Prime hosting account. And get this, neighbors, they're even giving you an exclusive 25% off discount for all our listeners. 25%. And remember, their Guru Crew support team is standing by 24/7, 365 days a year to answer any of your questions. Now, to get the discount, use the coupon code GENE when you check out.
As if chlorine in our water weren't bad enough, now they're adding ammonia?
It's true. Some municipalities are now adding ammonia plus chlorine to your water supply. It's a disinfectant called chloramine. But with a trusted Big Berkey water filter, you can keep chloramine out of your water. New NSF EPA certified lab tests show EPA Berkey water filters remove chloramines, pharmaceuticals, BPA, pesticides, bacteria and viruses, all forms of fluoride, and much more. Big Berkey water filters are the original and most trusted on the market, the gold standard in water purification. And our filters last for years at less than 2 cents per gallon. Big Berkey, the one that's powerful enough to purify stagnant pond water. Get your Big Berkey today. Call 1-877-99-BERKEY or click BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. That's 1-877-99-BERKEY. Big Berkey Water Filters, for the love of clean water.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number, 1-855-905-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. Say goodbye to the cable guy and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. Sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99, and there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows, pause and rewind live TV, even skip the commercials. Watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV. Say goodbye to the cable guy. Cut costs and get more. 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV.
My name's Clyde, age 59, and I reside in Florence, South Carolina. The doctors diagnosed me as having clogged arteries. It felt like I was carrying heavy concrete blocks around my feet and legs. I started taking Heart and Body Extract as directed. It is less than 3 weeks, and I'm like a young man again. It's unbelievable that an herbal formula can work so fast and so powerfully.
Learn the secrets of an effective, natural, 100% organic nutritional supplement for a healthy heart and circulation at hbextract.com.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
A long question from Curt Collins of Red Pill Junkie. You want to add to your answer?
Yeah, that was a pitiful reply. The man is a legend, and there's so much more to say.
You know, another person I really admire, I've been a fan of his since I was, a little kid, is the Spanish author and investigator Juan José Benítez, who I'm very sad that he's not as well known by the English-speaking UFO community as he should have. But right now I'm reading one of his latest books, which I'm finding very interesting, all these accounts of people who have apparently contacted dead relatives, and not even, like some kind of vision or hallucination, but actually, people who came back from the dead in a physical body, which is, very, very interesting.
Can you just briefly tell our listeners more about this person? They never heard of him. Are his books available in English?
I really don't know. I think that maybe his Caballo de Troya, Trojan Horse book series may be available in English now, but I would have to check on and maybe, get back to you on the Paracast forum. But no, I think that most of his bibliography is still only available in Spanish, sadly,
I suggest you write a blog article on that and get the word out, and maybe the demand will rise. But if I'd seen the man's name, I didn't recognize it. So yeah, I'd definitely be more interested in learning about his work. There are a lot of international researchers whose work has been ignored simply because of the language barrier, and we've got tools to deal with that now. So
yes, I think that. Richard Dolan mentions him in his UFOs and the National Security State series. I think he's mentioned in both books, because Juan Jose Benitez was very much involved in trying to disclose military UFO reports from the Spanish government, the Spanish Air Force. So in that regard, that was why Dolan had to mention.
Just to let you know, as we're doing the show, we're getting more and more questions from listeners.
Nice.
So there's some that you haven't even checked yet. In fact, when Curt refreshes his browser, he'll see more.
Yeah, there's some hot off the presses. There was one that Bluto 392 had asked that it was about the investigating things, and you kind of answered that about the different approach and the fact that we needed to look at things. Instead of looking strictly for physical evidence, look, for the effects that it had on people and things. So, but his other one was about what was beyond UFOs. He says, does it seem likely the Earth is the center of so many different types of paranormal activity? And he mentions cryptozoology, ghosts, time ships, UFOs, psychic phenomena, and so on. And so I'm wondering if he's asking if you think that there's a common cause to that, or if it's just that we're a common audience.
Well, I think that he raises a very good point, that maybe the only common link between all these allegedly diverse phenomena is that they are all experienced by a human mind. So, maybe human consciousness is the missing link in the paranormal that we have overlooked in our, obsession with trying to gather objective physical evidence. I think that right now in science, consciousness is considered maybe the hardest problem to solve. I'm really skeptical that scientists will be able to explain it away only as an epiphenomenon caused by the firings of our neurons, inside our brains. So this is something that we should try to investigate further. We should try in order to do our best to shift the current materialistic paradigm in order to entertain the possibility that consciousness may be more fundamental to our reality than maybe, energy and time space, that maybe consciousness is the fundamental building block of the whole universe.
I sometimes wonder here whether anything we see is real or whether we're all creating some sort of collective reality.
Well, in a way we are, we are observing things, from our very limited physical senses, and we are creating our model of the world, inside our heads, of how we think things really are, But that is really an illusion, We think that the grass is green, but that is only because the photons that are bounced back from the grass and are grabbed or perceived by the cones and rods inside our eyes, which are then transmitted and interpreted by our brain, they give us, the impression of greenness, but that is not really how maybe, a butterfly, which is capable of seeing in ultraviolet, that is not how a butterfly will see the grass. and which one is a more valid model of the world. The human model of the green grass of the or the butterflies.
That's a lot to think about. Well, a lot of the things, just like our social constructs, are certainly, it's just the fact that we agree with the ideas of the people around us. Now, I don't know if I can extend that to our physical environment, and some people believe that it's all a big hologram. But yeah, definitely our social, our bodies and minds in a way they're like water poured into a container and take the shape, and just think of the astronauts' bodies in space. We're built to work in a certain environment and certain conditions, and you remove that, and we don't always do so well.
Yeah, we are also constrained by all the social constructs we pretend that are so important, like, for example, military troops fighting and dying over lines drawn on a map. I mean, the idea of the nation state is completely, a fabrication of our society. It's no realer than, I don't know, a cartoon. And yet we take it so seriously. So, but also, things like institutions like banks or something like that. We impinged upon them so much validity over them, but they're really fabrications. Maybe if we decided that banks no longer matter, and I think that we are on the brink of doing just that. Now that with the rise of things like cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and all that, we are in the process of shifting our societal structure in ways that maybe our forefathers would not have been able to even imagine.
Let's do our break here. Red Pill Junkie, guest host Curt Collins, Gene Steinberg, you're in
The Paracast.
We are America's largest independently owned communications network, GCN.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
We've been patiently waiting while you tried to ignore us, waiting while you acted like we didn't exist, waiting for our chance to be taken seriously. The wait is over. GCN is available 24/7 at GCNlive.com. Navigate through news from your favorite hosts and download archives of past shows. Download the app on your smartphone or tablet, or visit GCNlive.com for instant access and live streaming. GCNlive.com, the future of talk radio, now at your fingertips.
Sciatica, lower back pain, hip pain, poor posture. If you suffer from any of these problems, get ready to relax. Introducing an amazing product that's been in the market for over 25 years, the Sacro Wedgie. It was invented by a football coach using a common sense osteopath technique. He created this device to help his athletes by isolating and supporting the sacrum, which is the keystone of our anatomy. This wedge-shaped bone is in the center of our hips, where a lot of pain starts. Simply relax 20 minutes daily on the amazingly simple Sacro Wedgie and let gravity do the work, helping muscles rebalance and start releasing nerves. Sit in the Sacro Wedgie at the computer or while traveling to help correct posture to finally help relieve those stubborn aches and pains for only $33.95. It's made in the USA, so click the family-owned website at sacrowedgie.com, spelled SACROWEDGY.com, or call 1-800-737-9295. That's 1-800-737-9295. Relax your back pain away with the Sacro Wedgie.
Okay, open your mouth and say ah.
Ah.
When your child has a sore throat, you need to know when to get help. The doctor-recommended Say Ah sore throat exam is your solution. The scientifically designed oral retractor offers a clear view of the throat, relaxing the tongue and minimizing gag reflex. Compare with the medical grade chart website and app. Then you'll know just what to tell your doctor. A wellness plan in your hands in minutes. Go to SayAHHnow.com. SayAhNow.com. The new mainstay for every family's first aid kit.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich? Working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare? Having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network, you'll find hundreds of work-from-home opportunities that you can literally start today and be earning money as soon as next week. Go to freedom106.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss. Get out of the rat race. Work from home. Go to freedom106.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom, the number 106.com. Go to freedom106.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You be the boss. Go to freedom106.com.
Hey, Berkey Guy here. Are you still drinking unfiltered tap water? Does your water contain chlorine or fluoride? Will you have drinkable water in an emergency? The Berkey Guy is here to help you remove these and other potential contaminants from your water, thus helping you drink clean, purified water. We offer Berkey water purification systems at the lowest available prices online. Don't go another moment without Berkey system. Over the last 10 years, we've helped thousands drink clean, purified water. Join them by visiting goberkey.com or call me, the Berkey Guy, at 877-886-3653. That's 877-886-3653.
Hi, my name is Richard Dolan. You're listening to The Paracast.
This is one of the most fascinating episodes of The Paracast ever. Now, we always get cutting-edge thinking when we put Red Pill Junkie in the virtual room. And we've got Curt Collins, so how can we miss? We also have very smart questions from our listeners. And they've been pouring in even though they know that we were immersed with the recording session. Curt, you got some more questions to move on to.
Well, we've got one here from a new poster using the name Gene Lionberg. And it's a big thought to pour into a little question, and I kind of wish that we had Stan Friedman answer this, but let's see if we can do this. First of all, his premise is, I would like to posit the lack of extraterrestrial virus pandemic as proof positive that alien craft has never visited the Earth. I'll let that sink in for a minute. You know, since we haven't all died off from alien virus, that means they haven't come. He says, in fact, if alien visitation was as rampant as some say, then either extraterrestrials are human visitors from the futures with the same virus as we have, or they are simply high strange Earth-based events caused by pan-dimensional subterranean Earth dwellers. I'd like to get your thoughts on this statement.
Well, let's entertain the possibility that UFOnauts are time travelers from the future. They will still have different viruses and different response to our own viruses. You know, let's remember what happened in my own country, Mexico, 500 years ago, when the Spanish conquistadors came, and you know the Nazi population was completely unprepared for the type of viruses and bacteria that they were carrying with them. You know, they haven't developed the proper natural defenses. So what happened, you know, in less than 10, 20 years, there was a complete and almost a complete die-off of the population. You know, I think there were like 20 million inhabitants in Mexico before the arrival of the Spaniards. By the end of the conquest, there were less than 2 million, you know, and they didn't die because the conquistadors, you know, killed them, you know, in warfare. They died because of the exposure to smallpox. So even if you had someone coming from as little as 50 years from the future, I think they will have a real problem fending off from the virus and bacteria that are running freely in our environment. Now we have mentioned so many sci-fi movies. Let's mention one of other of my favorite ones. 12 Monkeys, in which you have the name of what is the name of this actor?
Bruce Willis was in the original movie,
and Brad Pitt.
Yeah, and you have Bruce Willis, injecting himself with all these kind of things before exposing himself to the surface world, which had been, left by the humans that had to escape to the underworld because of this pandemic that had been carried out, less than 20 years ago. So I don't know if his these Paracast posters, speculation is that valid. I think even if we were talking about time travelers, maybe if those time travelers were, I don't know, androids or, machines with some kind of synthetic body, maybe that will, solve the problem of exposing themselves to dangerous terrestrial microbes.
I guess the easy answer is they were all ancient aliens. They've been coming for so long. Now we're just immune to it. So that would be the easy solution there. But personally, I don't buy it. We had a question here from Silly Rabbit that's kind of a bookend to the one we asked about your greatest influence. This one is more about newer things. What are some of the best paranormal alternative books and films or anything else released in the past 5 years? Selections that offer new insights or demonstrate that someone somewhere is trying to move the field forward.
That's a good question. In terms of film, I think that the documentary Mirage Man is really excellent and should be seen by everyone interested in this topic. And of course, Mark Pilkington, our friend Greg Bishop, to appear. Yeah, so Mark Pilkington's Mirage Man, his documentary is really excellent. From that, I will go to Greg Bishop's Project Beta. Also, any book written by Nick Redfern, and there you will have, I think you will spend years trying to catch up with Nick. I think he's the most prolific writer in this field ever. I think that by the time this recording is over, he might have finished another book. So from Nick, I think Final Events is one of my favorites. It's also very interesting because, it discusses the idea that groups within the U.S. government had moved away from the ETH and entertained fringier explanations for the UFO phenomenon. So that's why that particular book stands out. And there's also Mac Tony's The Crypto-Terrestrial. It's very short. Unfortunately, I think that Mac left the manuscript unfinished, but nevertheless, I think that it should be picked out by people interested in the topic. Because he was very, very eloquent. He was very capable of expressing very, very complex ideas, very succinctly, very clearly. And, the Crypto-Terrestrial is really as a thought experiment, because I don't think that Mac was really, that invested in thinking that the UFO were, crypto-terrestrial living in the caverns of our planet. But as a thought experiment, it's still very, very, very provoking, and it's really one of the best books that have surfaced in the last 10 years. And there's one book that I'm really looking forward to. Let me also mention another one, Joshua Cutchin's A Trojan Feast. I don't know if you guys have heard of it or even read it by now.
No.
What's the name of the book again?
A Trojan Feast.
Oh, I have heard of that.
Yeah, and Joshua will be an excellent guest in the Paracast, Jim.
We'll compare notes later.
Okay. Well, that's one book that has already been published, but a book that is about to be published is Mike Cleland's book about his research into owls and how owls somehow are linked with the UFO and alien encounter. That's one book that I'm really, really looking forward to reading in the future. Hopefully not too long in the future. Hopefully Mike will be able to finish the manuscript this year.
Mike did send me some messages on Facebook asking me a few questions. So maybe in some very minuscule way, I'm helping him in his research. I hope I am. But we're looking forward to it. I did read something about the cover being available already. So we're really looking forward to that book. There is a lot of fascinating work there. If you go beyond the core UFOs or spaceships, we want disclosure, that kind of stuff, and you try to take things to the next level, you're going to find out that there's a lot of interesting work being done in this field. This is an example, this episode with Red Pill Junkie and Curt Collins. But guess what? We have another segment and more questions from listeners. Please do not forget to check out the premium version of our show at plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. With Gene and guest co-host Curt Collins, you're in
The Paracast.
A little right, a little left, but always independent-minded. The Genesis Communications Network, GCN.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's Lemke soft.com. Lemkesoft.com. Lemke soft.com.
Hey, Berkey Guy here. Are you still drinking unfiltered tap water? Does your water contain chlorine or fluoride? Will you have drinkable water in an emergency? The Berkey Guy is here to help you remove these and other potential contaminants from your water, thus helping you drink clean, purified water. We offer Berkey water purification systems at the lowest available prices online. Don't go another moment without Berkey system. Over the last 10 years, we've helped thousands drink clean, purified water. Join them by visiting goberkey.com or call me, the Berkey Guy, at 877-886-3653. That's 877-886-3653.
Everyone says or does something silly once in a while, but once that embarrassing thing is on the internet, it can spread like a terrible rash. Put it to rest. Get a free expert analysis today from Reputation.com. It only takes 30 seconds. 800-831-0771. We protect your online image by helping to make sure that when people search for you or your business, they find the most current, accurate information possible. Reputation.com. Because word travels fast. Call for a free analysis today. 800-831-0771. That's 800-831-0771.
Are you excited about the World Wide Web? Do you want a place where you can share your ideas and express yourself? Well, dial up your modems and stream on down to the GCN Live Community Forum. Lots of radical features await you there.
Wow, Internet Guy, I'm so glad I went to the GCN Live Community Forum.
You too can discover why the World Wide Web is awesome. Just go to gcnlive.com/forum. That's gcnlive.com/forum. I'll see you in cyberspace. Friend at GCN Live on Diaspora and Cross.tv.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to paranormaldate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
Now, a twice as nice Twin Kit special offer from Complete H2O Minerals for all GCN listeners. Get a Complete H2O Minerals Twin Kit with 33 different minerals, vitamins, and amino acids all in a liquid form. Enough for 2 people for 1 month. Regular price $89.95, but now Complete H2O Minerals is offering the Twin Kit for $69.95. And all GCN listeners receive a bonus 16-ounce bottle of Ionic Silver absolutely free with free shipping. A $120 total value. Hurry, limited time offer. Call 803-794-4767 or click CompleteH2OMinerals.com.
Hi, it's Grant Cameron from presidentialufo.com. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Chris O'Brien is off this week, had an emergency to attend to. He'll tell you about later. We have Curt Collins as our guest co-host. He was recently with the Roswell Slides research group. He's studied the Cash Landrum case. He's done a lot of really interesting UFO research. And also, JimMosley.com. We didn't mention that in a while. What's happening with that?
Well, we're hoping to get some more submissions and photos. You know, some people like Rick Hilberg, who were around with him with the conventions in the old days, has supplied an article or two and some photos. So we're hoping for some more great historical material like that. You know, if anyone corresponded with them and has an article or you know, some letters or something like that they'd like to share, we've got, you know, some really good material up there. You know, Jim was on the very first Paracast show, and in fact, I got to know him from being on the show. You know, so, you know, I thank you, Gene, for having him on as often as you did. You know, it was a treasure and a gift to ufology.
Well, he was one of my best friends ever. We spent a lot of time talking over the years, and it was really sad to know that his time was short, but we did get him on the show like a few months before he died, so we had that added advantage. So it's JimMosley.com, and it's something that I set up on our web server, as a matter of fact, and then Curt agreed to manage it and do all the heavy lifting, and it's coming together really well. And you'll learn about one of the most incredible people in the UFO field. Speaking of incredible people, we also have Red Pill Junkie with us. And this is our final segment with him, at least this time. Do we have any more questions left?
There are a few. You know, there was kind of another part to one we were just on, and that was about, we should really kind of talk about, you know, some of the people with blogs and things like that, you know, because not all the thinking is being published or put into film. So, Miguel, did you have anyone else that you thought was doing interesting or inspiring work?
Yes, thank you, Curt, because I was hating myself for forgetting my cosmic compadre, Micah Hanks, you know, with his most excellent Gray Alien Report blog and also radio show. And also, I really like Micah's books, particularly his first one, Magic, Mysticism, and the Molecule. And also, we should mention Robbie Graham, you know, who is about to publish his book, Silver Screen Saucers, which I think is going to be really, really interesting because he's going to explore how cinema has been in a very interesting cross-pollination with the UFO phenomenon. You know, how the UFO phenomenon seems to have influenced the Hollywood view of UFOs instead of what the skeptics think, that the Hollywood movies are the way in which people, you know, interpret, you know, the phenomenon.
Like Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even Day the Earth Stood Still. That influenced the contactees going the other direction.
Yeah, and it seemed that the CIA had something to do with the production of that particular movie.
The original Day the Earth Stood Still, the CIA had something to do with that?
Yeah, I think you might have to have Robbie to explain it, but it seems that some of the people writing the script, you know, were involved with the CIA, and that's why, for example, they wanted to give it a level of authenticity in the first part of the movie. You know, when you see all the newsreel, you know, the showing the landing of the saucer, you know, and then they show, you know, maybe people speaking in English and then maybe speaking in Spanish, you know, and that, I think that was something that was suggested by someone who had close ties with the CIA.
Well, that's a very common thing, by the way, having ET send a message, and the message is presented in the indigenous language. Earth versus the Flying Saucers did that, where he's communicating the alien people of Earth attention, and you hear it in different languages. Or, for example, even more recently, 2013, the movie Man of Steel, the Superman reboot. General Zod comes to Earth, and he sends a warning to Earth people in all the languages, asking for them to stop harboring the alien Kal-El, which, of course, is Superman's birth name.
You know what that reminded me of that famous Brillon interruption of that British news service, you know, Brillon from the Ashtar Command, and that how there was this static and then the message from this alleged alien entity. I think that maybe the people behind the production of Man of Steel got inspiration from that.
Well, a lot of them use real books or pop culture to try to influence these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that you know, who's talking. Miguel was talking about Ravi's work and his blog, and I think this will be going into his books. That it's interesting how the UFO ideas go into the films, and then the films it's sort of a cycle. You know, it influences people. It certainly influences our understanding of perception. I think that's the movies. I think are so much why the 50s notion of the metal ships with little spacemen is unshakable in the public consciousness. If Jacques Vallée had gotten there first, we might have had a different notion and understanding.
Well, of course, it was different in the movie Contact, as I mentioned earlier.
That's in the minority. So often it's you know, the interdimensional notion has been very underrepresented in film. Of course, some people just don't associate that with UFOs at all. I guess they consider that more paranormal.
Well, you know, the thing is here that we want to look at ET as something resembling us mostly, maybe having horns in their head or ridges on their head or something like that, or maybe looking like Klingons, or maybe looking like Romulans. In other words, close enough. The ears are different. The face is elongated or squared, but they're still human, positing that if there's other life in the universe, advanced life, most of the time it will be humanoid, the height of egotistical behavior. Except, of course, in Star Trek, they did encounter beings who were thought beings, beings who looked totally different, beings who looked like us because we couldn't accept their real appearance.
Yeah. We have a very good mind-bending question here, which takes us kind of back to some of the things we were talking about earlier. This is from Bluto 392.
And by the way, it has to be a short answer because we're almost out of time, but let's go with it.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, let me see here if we have something that's more digestible. Well, this one is a good one, too. Miguel, what is it that causes you to continue to be passionate and imaginative about the phenomenon?
Keep the question to about the 30-second answer, okay, Miguel?
I don't know. It's like in the movie The Matrix, you know, that splinter in your mind, driving you mad. You know, there's something that moves people that we are in this field to move forward, or keep asking the questions. You know, maybe there is like something Mike says, you know, a sense of purpose, that maybe we are being driven by an outside force. I don't know.
What an answer. Curt Collins, where can our listeners check out more of your work?
BlueBlurryLines.com and JimMosley.com.
Red Pill Junkie, are there watering holes to check out your stuff?
Yes, in the Daily Grail, you know, dailygrail.com, mysteriousuniverse.org. Also on the Intrepid Magazine blog, I'm a semi-regular guest in Grimerica. I'm also in the middle of creating my own site, you know, but as soon as I have something that I can show you guys, I will keep you posted.
You can find us on Twitter. Just look for the Paracast. Look for the Paracast on Twitter. Check out 2 Paracast fan clubs on Facebook. And I don't care which one you visit. Go to both. We're happy to see it. Also check out the Paracast Plus, our premium subscription service. We offer the version of this show with a higher quality audio, free of the network ads. We also offer After the Paracast, which is an exclusive podcast only available to Paracast Plus members. We also give you a free copy of Chris O'Brien's Stalking the Tricksters if you subscribe for 1 year or 5 years, and the fees are not that high. I think it's worth it. A lot less than the price of a Starbucks coffee every single month. Go to plus.theparacast.com. Once again, plus.theparacast.com. We want you to check it out. We want you to join the service. Our guest co-host this week was Curt Collins. Chris O'Brien was off on an emergency, and we'll be back next week. Red Pill Junkie, thanks again for joining us on the Paracast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
The Paracast, featuring Gene Steinberg and Christopher O'Brien, is a copyrighted presentation of Making the Impossible, Incorporated. Tune in next week for a new adventure in The Paracast.